Yeah, hi Pete, it's Tersse, back in old squat box again, and I'm talking this evening about the new supported gun laws that are being passed, or hope for being passed, voting goes on tomorrow, to get a national background check, or a semi-national background check, or a half a national background check, or something like that. They've made some deal. And I was watching what do you call him? Fucking Joe, whatever his fucking name is, Morning Joe or something like that, my Coffee Joe or Morning Joe or something like that. I think it's Morning Joe. And he was saying how awesome it is that this has been done, you know, and it's the legislation that 90% of the people in America support. Except it's not the legislation that 90% of the people in America supports, because it's a deal that's been made and it's been watered down, and it's not the legislation that Obama asked the Senate to vote on. It's been watered down. The NRA sat in on the meeting where the two congressmen came to this deal, and they gave the nod to it. The NRA had a man in the room with these two congressmen discussing the bill and how they would change it, and the NRA member gave the nod, saying yes, the NRA wouldn't oppose it. That's how strong this bill is. Anyway, I'll give you this quick clip of Morning Joe touting how this is exactly what the people of America want, when it wasn't, because it's a deal that was made after the 90% had made their voice heard. They haven't been polled on this new deal. They were polled on Obama's deal, Obama's legislation, not this new legislation. But here's Joe from Morning Joe talking about it.
Push back a little bit on what the Daily News said.
Yeah.
This is not a soft gun deal. This is not nothing. This is huge. If you talk to people that really care about stopping gun violence in America, they will tell you that high-capacity magazines and assault weapons, those are great steps if you can ban those weapons. But those are more symbolic, really, than getting a background check system that is going to stop violent offenders. And I think Sam made this point yesterday. If anybody, Mika, had told us a year ago that we were going to close the gun show loophole where terrorists could walk in and get an assault weapon and go out and kill Americans, our internet cells where violent rapists, child molesters, felons could go on the internet and buy assault weapons, everybody would say it wouldn't happen. This is not a soft deal. This is actually less symbolism. And it's one of these wonderful times, Sam, in politics, where the easiest thing to do may be the most important thing to do.
So there's always been two conversations, right? There's instances of mass killing in which an assault weapon ban does have an effect, in which a magazine ban does have an effect.
And it gets
and those
the
are
massive headlines.
Of course. And there's 90% of all gun violence which is done via handguns, in which case you have things like the gun show loophole and the internet sales loophole that matter. And the Times today has a big story about a guy who just basically was able to skirt around, go through the internet and get a gun and used it to kill someone because he didn't have to go through a background check on the internet sales. These things don't get the headlines. Of course they do now because we're debating the bill, but as it happens you don't see the headlines. But these are the types of things that happen with respect to gun violence every day in America.
Every day.
So there's what Morning Joe and his cronies think about it. Now I'm going to show you a bit of a clip from Rachel Maddow, which aired the evening before this deal was foisted upon the American people. This is legislation which is already passed in Louisiana and has been foisted upon 7 other states in America over the last year, and probably a lot of them are going to vote on it shortly as well. And this bill, which has already been passed in Louisiana, actually negates everything that they're going to be voting on tomorrow. The background checks. It negates that. Because this bill, as you'll hear Rachel Maddow explain, states that it's unconstitutional to refuse a criminal to be in possession of a gun. Yeah. It actually makes it unconstitutional to arrest a felon simply because you find them in possession of a gun, which legally he's, until now, till this bill was passed, it was illegal for him to possess a gun because he was a felon. Well, this legislation makes it unconstitutional to arrest him because he possesses a gun, just because he's a felon. I'll let Rachel Maddow spell it out for you in the way that she does so well.
But we start tonight in Louisiana. We start in the courtroom of this local district court judge. In his courtroom a couple of weeks ago, a case arose that involved a convicted felon. A young man who was a convicted burglar. He was found riding in a car with a loaded .40 caliber Smith & Wesson handgun on the back seat. There was also an AK-47 with an extended capacity 30-round magazine in the trunk of the car. This guy is in the car with those guns, and he is a felon. Convicted felons are not supposed to have guns. But when this young man's case came up in court last month, the young man, the burglar with the AK-47 and the .40 caliber handgun, he was not contesting the facts of the case. He was not denying that he was a convicted felon. He was not denying that he was in that car with those guns. What he was contesting in court last month was the very idea that it can be illegal for a convicted felon to have a gun. And he won his case. Louisiana, like every state in the Union, says, yes, we respect the Second Amendment. There is a right to keep and bear arms, but it is not without any limits at all. Perhaps the lowest common denominator we can all agree on is that convicted felons are not allowed to have guns, right? Louisiana and every other state in the country and the federal government all ban felons from having guns. But in Louisiana, that ban on felons getting guns was declared unconstitutional by that local trial court judge last month. And that's because of a new law that the NRA supported in Louisiana last year. A new law that singles out gun laws and gun regulations for special scrutiny by the courts. Essentially, gun laws in Louisiana now are presumed to be unconstitutional unless proven otherwise, including the one about felons. When the law was first proposed, the Bureau of Governmental Research, which is kind of like the Congressional Research Service at the state level, they do nonpartisan review of legislation and policy for the state of Louisiana. These nonpartisan analysts in the state said, don't do this thing the NRA wants us to do. They urged people to vote against this change in the law. They said there is no good reason to enter this uncharted territory. They said changing the law like this, quote, would expose the public to unnecessary risks and hamper law enforcement. Republican Governor Bobby Jindal, though, supported it. He said he was proud to join with the National Rifle Association on this. He said, it's time we protected our freedom. Now that it turns out that what he was protecting was the ability of convicted felons to legally possess AK-47s, Governor Bobby Jindal is saying now that maybe this is a big misunderstanding. Put out a statement saying, quote, we disagree with the judge's ruling. See, he never thought that this law he was joining with the NRA to support would affect laws barring felons from owning guns. Oh, but it does. And now, thanks to the legislation that you let the NRA write for your state, the convicted felon who was in jail because he was found to be in possession of an AK-47 with a 30-round clip and a .40 caliber handgun, he has now been sprung from jail. And when the state Supreme Court hears the case soon, the people who warned against this NRA law in the first place are warning that one of the possible outcomes at the Supreme Court would be that the law banning felons from having guns won't just be struck down permanently. It will be struck down retroactively, which would result in a mandatory springing from prison of every convicted felon who is in jail in Louisiana right now because he was a felon illegally in possession of a gun. That won't be able to be illegal anymore, thanks to what the NRA tricked old Bobby Jindal into supporting, even though he swears he didn't understand that it would work out like this. Louisiana is the first state to enact this thing that the NRA wrote for them, but they have also convinced Republicans to introduce the exact same thing within the past year in 7 other states: Minnesota, Missouri, Alabama, Iowa, Illinois, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. So what do you think, Minnesota? You ready for the NRA to force you to let out of prison all of your felons who were caught with AK-47s? You sure you understand what you're getting into here? Louisiana is a case study for what happens when you let the NRA write your gun laws. Turns out it's not a great idea. I mean, it would be one thing if Bobby Jindal and all the rest of them actually intended to give guns to all the convicts in the state of Louisiana. But they apparently did not intend to do that, and they're shocked to find out that that's what they got when they did what the NRA told them to do. Louisiana is a case study for what goes wrong when you let the NRA be in charge of this part of public policy. And at the federal level, we are now, today, deciding if we want to keep letting the NRA be in charge of this part of public policy.
So, there you have it. The NRA are sitting in on one bill, giving the nod and saying that they won't oppose it. Whilst on the other fucking seat down the road, they're passing bills through the state legislature which negates any bill that's going to be passed tomorrow in the Senate. They're stating it's unconstitutional to refuse felons the right to own guns. You know, so what's going to be true? Is it going to still be illegal for felons to buy guns, or is it unconstitutional to stop them from buying and possessing guns? What law is going to be the statute which supersedes the other? Does the federal law stand? Does the state law stand? Does the state law stand only in that state? Do they get arrested when they cross borders into a state that doesn't have that legislation? I mean, what's going on, man? America, you are so fucked up, man, allowing the NRA to have anything to say about any of this policy when they are the pushers. Yeah, just like a drug pusher. They're the pushers of guns in your country. You think they're going to try and help you to make any sort of sense out of gun legislation? No, they've been mixing the water and poisoning the fucking broth forever. Anyway, sounds you are. And I just hope that somewhere, sometime in America, you can get your act together and make fucking sense out of this mess, you know what I mean? Cheers.